Harley Davidson just handed the throttle to a man who doesn't play by old rules. And the shakeups already started. In just weeks, the motor company's tone, timing, and tactics have flipped. Some say he's fixing Harley's future. Others think he's pushing too far, too fast. Either way, the road ahead looks nothing like what we've known. Because when this kind of change hits Milwaukee, it always finds its way to the showroom floor and your wallet. Watch till the end, and I'll show you what this shift really means for riders like us. The appointment heard across Milwaukee. Harley Davidson didn't just change leadership, it detonated one. When Artie Starrs was announced as the new chief executive officer, insiders described the move as the most radical shift since the company went public decades ago. Starrs isn't a biker, at least not yet. He's a strategist trained in boardrooms, not back roads. And that's exactly why this moment matters. Harley didn't hire another enthusiast. They hired a disruptor. The message from Milwaukee was clear. The company's old rhythm of cautious adjustments is over. Starrs was chosen to shake the system, not maintain it. He's already torn up parts of the old hierarchy, calling dealers directly, rewriting reporting lines, and questioning the very way Harley communicates with its own customers. His philosophy is built on simplicity: cut the noise, rebuild the trust, and make the rider feel like the brand is listening again. For years, Harley sold nostalgia. Starrs is cutting deeper, rebuilding pricing, dealer strategy, and mindset. This isn't evolution, it's triage. He's not polishing chrome, but stripping the walls bare. And maybe, for the first time in decades, that's exactly what Harley needs. Because to understand what this means for riders like you, we have to look at where the brand was standing before the storm hit, a brand at a crossroads. By the time Starrs took the reins, Harley Davidson wasn't dying, but it was drifting. Sales had plateaued, dealers were restless, and the brand's swagger had gone soft. The older loyalists still held the line, but even they could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Too many executive resets, too many half-hearted campaigns, too little real direction. The motor company had become more cautious than confident, more corporate than cultural. That's the battlefield Starrs walked into, one where identity itself was under siege. He's not just trying to increase profits. He's trying to rewire a culture that forgot how to take risks. Reports from inside the company describe his early weeks as controlled chaos. Meetings that used to drag on for hours now ended in minutes. Departments were told to simplify, focus, and stop selling stories that didn't connect with real riders. Dealers felt it instantly. The tone from Milwaukee turned real, not rehearsed. Starrs isn't erasing Harley's past. He's revealing its strength again. For those who built their lives around that bar and shield, it's a test of authenticity in a market drowning in noise. Because if the brand's heartbeat depends on its people, then the dealers, the ones keeping the lights on, were about to feel that change first. If you're finding this breakdown useful, and you care about where Harley's really heading, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more no-spin updates. Your thoughts matter too. Share what you're seeing in your local dealerships, and let's compare notes. Dealers on the edge. Walk into any Harley dealership in mid-2024, and you could feel it. The tension. Rows of bikes polished to perfection, but fewer buyers walking through the door. Managers spoke quietly about tighter financing, longer holding costs, and corporate programs that demanded numbers most shops could not reach. A few dealers whispered that headquarters had forgotten how hard the front lines really were. One longtime owner of a Midwest dealership put it bluntly: "They tell us to move units, but they don't ask what it takes to sell one." That frustration ran deep. Some shops were family businesses dating back generations, carrying the same name on their sign since the early 1970s. These were not franchise chains. They were cornerstones of local riding culture. But margins were shrinking, and with each quarterly memo, the bond between dealers and Milwaukee stretched thinner. Before taking over, Starrs made 35 to 40 personal calls to dealers nationwide, no scripts, just questions. What's broken? What do riders want fixed? For once, someone from the top was listening. "He didn't sound corporate," one dealer said. Curiosity isn't change yet, but after years of silence, it's progress. And beyond the business side, another debate was brewing among riders themselves. What does Harley stand for now? While Harley changes its direction, make sure your setup's solid gear and accessories, I trust, are linked in the description. Heritage or hype? Ask 10 riders what Harley Davidson means today, and you will hear 10 different answers. For some, it is still the rumble that stirs your chest at idle, the freedom of a long road home, the pride of an American badge that has outlasted everything else on two wheels. For others, it has become an expensive symbol, polished for lifestyle ads instead of real riders. Somewhere along the line, the language changed. The old Harley was forged in oil, sweat, and community. The new Harley, some say, feels like marketing gloss painted over history. Dealers hang banners of rugged adventure, but many customers feel priced out or unseen. Riders talk about chrome that costs extra, stripped-down models that feel unfinished, and executives who treat tradition as a product feature instead of a living culture. Loyalty still burns, even among skeptics. They remember cold morning carb sparks and cross-country miles on faithful road kings. Nostalgia runs deep, but Harley must evolve without losing its heart. As autumn neared, Stars faced his first dealer summit. No one knew if he'd speak numbers or people. His words defined everything after. What he said next to the dealers would surprise everyone, and it would define the start of Harley Davidson's next chapter. Fixing the ride experience. Artie Stars did not wait until his first official day to start understanding Harley Davidson. Before October 1st, he had already picked up the phone and called between 35 and 40 dealers across the country. The calls were not scripted, not filtered through corporate liaisons. He wanted to hear the truth directly from the people who stood face to face with customers every single day. Dealers said they were surprised by his tone, curious, calm, and open. He asked what frustrated them most, what slowed down sales, and what they believed riders truly wanted. He was also seen buying a Harley with his own money, no cameras, no corporate photographer. He wanted to go through the process like a customer, to feel the friction firsthand. From financing to delivery, he traced every step. Later, during that first dealer meeting in Milwaukee, he admitted he had learned plenty from that purchase alone. It was not the kind of move expected from a corporate veteran. It was a mechanic's habit of looking under the hood before giving advice. The dealers who spoke to him began repeating a short piece of advice that became legend overnight. During the conference, Stars asked if he could quote one of them. The dealer nodded, and the new CEO looked across the room of hundreds of executives, owners, and staff. "One of you told me," he said, "don't be a jerk." The room laughed, but the meaning landed hard. Every relationship Harley had between company, dealer, and rider was built or broken on respect. That simple line became the spirit of his early weeks. Stop lecturing, start listening. If the company had lost its connection with riders, it would rebuild that trust the old-fashioned way, by treating people like people again. But understanding the customer was only the beginning. Next came the harder work getting Harley's financial house in order. Tightening the bolts. Every rider knows that before a long trip, you tighten the bolts. You check the lines, adjust the clutch, and make sure nothing rattles loose. Stars seemed to take that same mindset to Harley Davidson's finances. He inherited a company still profitable but fragile. Years of shifting leadership had left behind a patchwork of incentive plans, temporary cuts, and uneven spending. Investors wanted stability, dealers wanted predictability, riders wanted prices that made sense. The new compensation plan he accepted spoke volumes. There were short-term incentives, bonuses tied to immediate performance. But the real reward was long-term stock ownership. The contract required him to hold company shares worth several times his salary. In plain terms, that meant his future depended on Harley's future. If the brand thrived, so would he. If it stumbled, he would stumble too. That kind of accountability was rare at the executive level and gave employees a sense that someone at the top finally had skin in the game. Stars silenced rumors he was hired to sell Harley. Investor documents showed no merger bonus, only rewards for longevity. His approach felt like tightening loose bolts quiet, precise and necessary. It wasn't flashy, but riders respected it. In every garage, steady torque matters more than talk. But balance sheets and contracts only go so far, because if the factory floor stalls, everything else falls apart. The factory reset. Harley's factories have always carried a kind of sacred weight. The hum of welders, the clatter of presses, the smell of paint, curing on metal, each sound and scent, a heartbeat of American industry. Yet, over time, production bottlenecks, parts shortages, and supplier missteps had worn down efficiency. Some models faced back orders stretching months. Dealers waited, customers grew restless, and small problems multiplied. Under Stars, the push was to simplify and stabilize. Early reports from suppliers and internal staff described renewed attention to parts logistics. Schedules were tightened, vendor contracts reviewed, and assembly workflows recalibrated to cut idle time. He emphasized reliability over record-breaking volume, focusing on rhythm rather than speed. "A good build is like a good ride," one manager said, "steady, not rushed." Progress showed quietly. Dealers faced fewer parts delays, service backlogs shrank, and riders got their bikes back on time trust rebuilt, piece by piece. Inside factories, schedules steadied, overtime eased, and pride returned to the line. Harley's heartbeat, once buried under corporate noise, was finally beginning to sound steady again. But tightening the production line wasn't enough. The company still needed to rebuild its voice and speak to riders in a way they recognized. Talking straight to riders. When Stars looked at Harley Davidson's marketing, he saw what most riders had felt for years. Too much polish, not enough grit. Ads had drifted toward lifestyle cliches, perfect lighting, spotless jackets, scripted slogans about freedom. But the real Harley story was never about clean gloves. It was about calloused hands and long rides through rain. One of his first internal goals was to tone down the fluff. Meetings with the communications team focused on authenticity, using the same words riders used, showing real owners, and cutting the buzzwords that alienated the core audience. The goal was not to reinvent Harley's image, but to reclaim it. In the 1970s and 80s, Harley ads spoke in plain English. The great American freedom machine. There was no acting, no studio lighting, just the bike and the road. Stars wanted to bring that back. Harley's new direction focused on listening. Surveys sought stories, not statistics, celebrating long rides, rebuilds, and custom. Pride. Dealers felt it too. Training shifted from hard sales to real connection. The message was simple. You can't sell pride, you earn it. Authenticity returned, but promises alone wouldn't cut it. Riders wanted proof in the metal. Fair prices, solid builds, dependable support. The kind of change they could feel on the open road. Because at the end of the day, promises on paper mean nothing until the people who ride those bikes can feel the difference in their wallets. Riders react. The news of Harley Davidson's new leadership rolled through rider circles like a rumble across open pavement. Forums lit up first. Some longtime owners were cautiously optimistic, saying maybe, just maybe, this change would mark the end of Harley's corporate cold streak. Others were not buying it. They had seen too many press releases, too many promises that never reached the road. "You can't rebuild trust with slogans," wrote one user who said he'd owned 6 Harleys since 1978. "Show me better service and prices that make sense, then we'll talk." At rallies from Sturgis to Daytona, talk around campfires followed the same rhythm. Older riders, the ones who had logged hundreds of thousands of miles, spoke with nostalgia and skepticism. They still loved the machines, but worried the company had drifted too far from the garage. Younger riders, the few who were there, seemed more curious than loyal, drawn by style, not heritage. The divide was real, but both sides wanted one thing: a Harley that felt worth believing in again. Hope was returning. Dealers said corporate messages felt genuine again, and regional reps asked about satisfaction, not just numbers. "At least they remember who buys the bikes," a Wisconsin rider said. It wasn't a comeback yet, but it felt like direction. Still, Harley's redemption won't be measured in charts. It'll be judged by a culture that's endured decades of promises and still demands proof with every mile ridden. Meanwhile, behind every counter and in every service bay, another story was unfolding, one that showed just how heavy this change really was. Shops under strain. Walk into a Harley shop today, and you'll hear more than the idle of display bikes. You'll hear the clatter of tools, the murmur of technicians, and the quiet pressure that comes with a full schedule. Service departments have been running lean for years, and the new systems rolling out from Milwaukee were meant to make things smoother, but they came with growing pains. Training programs were updated, software redesigned, and diagnostic routines refined. Some of it helped, some of it slowed things down. "We're learning as we go," said one mechanic from Missouri. "They're trying to clean things up, but it's a lot of change fast." Parts delays, once a nightmare that stretched for months after the pandemic, had started to ease. Still, certain specialty components, custom trims, touring electronics were hit or miss. Every technician had their own workaround, often depending on how well their parts rep could pull strings. The new leadership promised to fix bottlenecks, and progress showed. Parts arrived faster, inventories clearer, though workloads stayed heavy, especially for smaller shops. "We used to feel like noise in the system," one veteran manager said. "Now they actually read our reports." Morale rose, proof that attention matters. But smoother service was only half the battle. Harley still needed to restore value for the loyal owners who kept the brand alive. Fixing service is one thing, but fixing value is another, and that fight was just beginning. The money side for owners. Every Harley owner knows that value is more than what the Blue Book says. It's the confidence that your bike holds its worth, that the brand behind it protects what you invested. Over the past decade, that confidence had been shaken. Used bike prices had slipped, trade-in offers were lower, and new models carried sticker tags that tested loyalty. Many owners quietly wondered whether the badge on their tank still meant stability. By early 2025, dealers started adjusting prices to stay competitive. Some marked down overstocked touring models by thousands just to move inventory. Others began offering trade-in bonuses to encourage older riders to upgrade. In many regions, the used market saw subtle improvement as buyers recognized the new leadership's push for cleaner operations. Fewer recalls and better quality control were making headlines, and that alone boosted resale sentiment. Not everyone gained. Riders who bought between 2017 and 2020 saw trade-in values fall, echoing the early twin-cam slump. One retired mechanic said, "When Harley listens to riders, value climbs. When it chases investors, it sinks." Stars promise stability, but riders judge by insurance rates and resale, not reports. For now, trends looked steadier, dealers hopeful, and the new boss visible, not hiding behind spreadsheets. Because soon, riders saw him standing right where they never expected, a Harley CEO among the crowd, watching and listening in real time. If you've been following this far, you already know the truth. Change is coming fast. Stay ahead of it. Subscribe now, and you'll always get the next Harley update before the rumors start spinning. The CEO in the crowd. When word spread that Artie Stars had been spotted at Biketoberfest in Daytona, few believed it at first. CEOs rarely showed up without a camera crew or a press team. But there he was. No security detail, no staged photo ops. Just another man in jeans walking the vendor rows, talking with riders. Someone caught him on video, listening to a dealer explain how rally sales kept small shops alive. Another clip showed him chatting near a lineup of touring bikes, taking mental notes, while a couple of owners discussed seat comfort and heat management. It was not a grand speech, just quiet observation. And for riders used to being ignored by executives, that mattered more than any corporate memo. One spectator put it bluntly, "You don't fix Harley from a boardroom, you fix it by smelling the exhaust." That kind of presence sent a signal across the community. The man at the top was paying attention. Reports showed stars quietly attending small rallies, asking dealers what worked and what failed. At first, many thought it was for show, until they realized there were no cameras, no press. "He didn't need to be there, but he came anyway," one dealer said. That gesture earned respect. His presence bridged the gap between Harley's boardroom and its riders, even as analysts waited to see if the revival was real. Still, his presence at rallies couldn't stop the industry from watching every move, and what came next would decide whether Harley Davidson could truly ride back into the heart of America. When Harley moves, everyone watches in the motorcycle world. When Harley Davidson shifts direction, the whole industry leans in to listen. No other brand carries that same gravitational pull. It's the weight of heritage, of steel and thunder echoing through a century of American roads. When word spread about the company's internal rebuild under Artie Starrs, competitors didn't laugh, they studied it. Indian Motorcycle, Harley's oldest rival and most familiar mirror, began adjusting its own dealer strategy. Insiders say Indian's corporate leadership quietly reassessed pricing on key touring models, preparing for a potential shift in Harley's value structure. Honda, ever the global strategist, took a different approach. Industry analysts noticed subtle updates to Goldwing production forecasts, enough to suggest they anticipated renewed competition in the heavyweight touring class. Even Triumph, more rooted in European nostalgia, released statements about honoring traditional craftsmanship, a phrase that felt deliberately timed. This wasn't fear, it was respect. When Harley shifts, the whole industry listens. Dealers sense steadier shipments and a voice with purpose again. Analysts now call it restructuring momentum, praising Starrs' steady old-school leadership. But respect in this world is fragile. One wrong model, and it's gone. Rivals like Indian and Honda watch every move, knowing a stronger Harley means tougher fights on every showroom floor. But not all the pressure was coming from overseas. Some of it was being felt deep in the American heartland, where factories and workers waited to see if promises would meet reality. Jobs, factories, and the flag. The hum of Harley's factories has always sounded like American pride made mechanical. In places like York, Pennsylvania, and Menomonee Falls, Wisconsin, entire communities grew around that sound. Generations clocked in under the same roof, building bikes that carried their families' fingerprints across the country. When Starrs took over, those workers wanted one thing above all: assurance that the jobs and the heritage would stay home. Rumors of outsourcing had haunted the brand for years. Every time production shifted even slightly, social media flared up with accusations that Harley was abandoning its roots. Starrs addressed those concerns carefully. Public filings showed renewed investment in domestic facilities, updated machinery, and commitments to U.S. steel sourcing. Some cost-cutting had to happen, but unlike previous leadership eras, it was paired with reinvestment at home rather than quiet relocation abroad. Union leaders cautiously praised new cooperation, noting better communication and morale across Harley's plants. Modest raises and safer lines signaled change, not talk. Patriotism still fuels those factories. Each bike built on U.S. soil feels like defiance against cheaper offshore shortcuts. Starrs called American production the company's spine, reminding everyone Harley's power lies in its people. But steel alone won't save it. Only riders can keep that spirit alive. Which brings the story to the most important part of all, the one, written not by executives, but by families in garages across America. Passing the torch. In small garages and driveways, from Texas to Tennessee, something sacred still happens on weekends. A grandfather hands a wrench to his grandson. A daughter helps her father polish the tank before a Sunday ride. A teenager takes their first shaky laps on a mini bike, while an old dog watches from the porch. This is how the Harley story keeps breathing, not through commercials, but through moments like these. For years, older riders have worried about who will carry the flame forward. Membership in motorcycle clubs has grayed, and local meetups have thinned. Yet beneath the surface, new sparks are catching. Community programs, riding schools, and mentorship events have quietly begun reintroducing young people to the craft of riding. It's not about rebellion anymore, it's about connection. A quiet revival is unfolding in garages nationwide. Older Sportsters and Dynas draw new riders, while builders online make wrenching look noble again. Veterans of the road pass down throttle feel and touring wisdom, teaching not trends but pride. Harley's future won't come from factories or boardrooms. It'll rise from those lessons shared in oil-stained driveways, where the next generation learns to love that unmistakable sound. And that leads to the final question every owner must face, the question that no press release can answer. Your choice. Brother. Every rider remembers the moment they first heard a Harley fire up close, the slow growl, the vibration through the soles, the quiet power that makes everything else fade away. That sound means different things to different people. For some, it's independence. For others, it's a memory, but for everyone who has ever twisted that throttle, it's a promise. Freedom earned, not given. As Harley Davidson rebuilds under new leadership, each rider must decide what that promise still means. Maybe it's faith that the company can return to its roots without losing touch with the present. Maybe it's skepticism shaped by years of disappointment. Both are fair, because being a Harley rider was never about blind loyalty. It was about knowing what matters and standing by it. Artie Starrs may not be the leader who defines Harley's next era, but he's done what few could-made riders care again. In garages and on back roads, that passion keeps the story alive. The brand's fate isn't sealed in boardrooms, it lives in calloused hands and open highways. Whatever changes come, the sound of that engine, the heartbeat of freedom, will always belong to those who still believe in it. Harley's changing fast. Maybe for the better, maybe not. But one thing's for sure. Riders like us are the ones who will feel it first. Let me know down below. Do you think this new CEO can bring Harley back? Or is the old spirit gone for good? If you found this useful, give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next No Spin update. We've got more truth, more engines, and more real stories coming your way.